This episode is sponsored by Cyberlytica, combating fraud, account takeover, and information warfare. Get a free dark web password scan now from Cyberlytica. Use promo code HACKEDAGAIN. My guest today is Paul Innella, a cybersecurity subject matter expert and is the CEO of TDI. Paul has nearly 25 years of corporate executive, cybersecurity, and computer science experience. He founded, financed, and built TDI into a world-class consulting firm offering cybersecurity services to hundreds of government agencies and commercial clients around the world. Paul, I want to first welcome you to the show and ask you, what keeps you up at night?
Thanks very much, Scott. Well, a lot of things keep me up at night these days, especially as the Ukraine is being infiltrated by Russia. And I think we've all heard on the news, and some of us witnessed a significant uptick in cyber attacks. Yeah. But one of the I guess weakest links in the chain that I fear for the most is smaller community banks and credit unions, because I just don't think they're equipped to fight cybercrime at the level that's necessary. I think criminals know and exploit this, and that's part of the problem. So what keeps me up at night really is, what's the untold harm to global financial services and banking industries if there were a concerted effort to play out, and concerted efforts are playing out. So as fearful sounding as it may be, in nearly 30 years in this space, I believe we're now at one of the most tenuous places we've ever been in terms of genuinely understanding risk. And frankly, my 2 cents on the risk is that it's unimaginable.
Yeah, that's a valid fear, and something similar to what I've thought, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners think about too. So really glad that you highlighted that. I want to learn a little bit more maybe about some of the great stuff that you guys are doing there at TDI. And one thing I came across, I was looking over on your website there, was this interesting white paper. And it was an insight report. It was entitled Cybersecurity Alignment Between the Business and the Board. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about that and share some of your insight from the report.
Yeah, I think the board report, along with simultaneously build out of the solution that you mentioned, CNSight, kind of come together at a pretty appropriate time. One of the things that we've been able to do over these last 20 years at TDI, given our customer base, is assess boards of directors while being on board ships and assessing their systems and looking at systems in space and underwater, and working with small banks all the way up to the London Metal Exchange and some of the top 10 banks. And it's an interesting purview for especially a company our size that's wholly focused on cybersecurity, because as we roll out tens of thousands of tools, and we're probably 15 rolled out in the 10 seconds it took me to say that, I think we keep going away from what is a paradigm challenge that we have. And that's, we keep focusing on activity and we're not focusing on achievement. I mean, in other words, we can answer what we're doing. We can't answer how well we're doing. And the white paper tries to lay out a proven and kind of practical approach organizations can use to increase their value and alignment of cybersecurity to the business and the board. And we kind of believe that's where it starts. And if you're following the news very recently, the SEC and Senators King and Collins have been pushing and actually just got put into the omnibus some cybersecurity rules changes that are forcing larger institutions, particularly those governed by the SEC, to start reporting out in a more timely manner and disclose what is the expertise that you have on the board to address cyber. And so you're looking at statistics like organizations spent 12.4% more last year than the year before. So we're up to $260 billion in cyber spend. And the teams that are carrying this out are only getting more and more pressure. So naturally the board, they want in. Right? They need the awareness to understand what's happening in their organization. But it's really hard to bridge that gap. We've got limited automation, inconsistent reporting, cyber being poorly integrated into strategy generally, And again, no expertise on the board usually. So our premise is that the paradigm has to shift such that cyber is as critical and interrelated to the success of an organization as any resource, any component, whether it's pricing or marketing or labor or financial systems or growth or human resources. Meaning, if we raise it to this highest level of an organization, we also have to understand its impact, how it's measured and visually reported on. And the reason this doesn't happen generally is there's a misalignment in understanding of risk tolerance between the board and the security teams in an organization. There's a disparity in technical understanding and in industry terminology. We're not speaking the same lexicon, right? You walk into a board, as an example, in Singapore or in Tokyo or in Washington, D.C., you ask for a P&L statement, everyone understands. You ask for pro forma sales projections, everyone understands. If you ask for a cyber report, I will bet my career you'll never see the same two things happening. And that's a major issue. And there's also lack of meaningful and timely visibility into really the day-to-day cyber performance of an organization. So the white paper sets out to take on some of the guidance that's coming out from governance bodies like NACD and ISA. It provides a roadmap on how to get there, how to improve your organization's alignment to strategy and reporting into the board, with 8 tenets on how to increase that alignment, and 5 key metrics, which genuinely, after 20 years, we believe are kind of the core components to how you understand a cyber program. Because really, if we boil it down to simple terms, we should be running cyber like a business. It should just be another business unit, and we should be able to answer how it does. So if you manage its performance or measure and manage its performance, its risk, its maturity, its compliance, and its ROI or business value, then you'll be speaking the same lexicon and bringing the board into play. So we hope this is kind of a primer in what isn't a novel approach to running a business, but what is a novel approach to running a cyber program. Because if I have to sit in one more board meeting and hear last month we had 10,000 vulnerabilities and this month we have 5,000 vulnerabilities, I'm going to rip the report up. It tells us nothing. And so we really have to get to that place. And the solution we built, CNSight, is really playing this out in an automated fashion. So we have built something that ingests existing cyber tools into our management platform, CNSight, to provide all of these elements and metrics and what we're calling CPIs instead of KPIs. And that's what we have spent 20 years learning how to understand, and the last 5 bottling and putting into this solution.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. And I really like how you kind of mentioned there in describing how cyber, you have to treat it like a business. And I think so many organizations, they don't really do that. They kind of think of it as an afterthought, especially after a company's compromised, suffer a ransomware attack or a data breach or something. And then all of a sudden everything gets turned upside down. And it's kind of a disaster at that point. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, I think, the way that traditional companies are handling it. And it's great that you guys have this years of experience where you can come in and you've developed tools and technology that can hopefully change that landscape a little bit to improve a company's cyber stance. So it's great stuff that you're doing there. And I encourage people to certainly reach out. And in fact, maybe, Paul, what's a great way that people can learn more, maybe about some of the stuff that you're doing there and get a conversation with you and your team?
Well, simply go to our website at tdisecurity.com. There's plenty of places there where you can register, and we'll reach out to you right away. We will be publishing this white paper this month, so look for that, and that will be available on our website as well. And some conferences that we're going to as well will be posted, and on Twitter we're at TDI Security, and you can come check us out at one of these conferences as well. So I'll be at CISO 360 in New York on 31 March as an example, doing a keynote there. Great stuff. Great.
Thanks again for your insight there, Paul. And I encourage certainly our viewers and listeners to check out some of the great stuff that TDI is doing. And thanks again for the time, and stay safe, everyone.
Thanks very much, Scott. Appreciate it.